Hi everyone, and welcome back to our video series, To The Point with NavVis. In this series, we're going to be interviewing some industry experts to show you some insights into how to get the most out of some amazing reality capture and data visualization software. Before we get started, make sure you're subscribed to our channel so you don't miss out when we post, and if you have any comments or questions, please feel free to leave them below. For this episode, I'm so happy to welcome back Nate McCall, a senior solutions consultant at NavVis, focusing on our manufacturing industry. Welcome back, Nate. Thanks for joining us.
It's awesome to be here. Are we still waiting for the industry experts, or?
Yeah, actually, if you could let them in, that would be great.
Right. Just kidding. Good to be here.
No, we're thrilled to have you, and dive it back into kind of what we were talking about last time. I see we are starting at the same place. We're in the robot cell, looking at that panoramic image. So maybe you can show us a bit more about that.
Yeah, exactly. So I just kind of thought it would be a good idea to start where we ended the last episode. So yeah, we're in the same robot cell, and I think I went over all this stuff with everyone in the last episode. You know, we're looking at the panoramic photos, which is what makes the data easy for us humans to kind of understand and digest. So just you can look around and zoom in and zoom out. But I thought it would be interesting, if you're cool with it, maybe to dive a little bit deeper before we talk about some of the other things we want to get to today, to talk a little bit more about the point cloud data. Is that cool?
Yes, absolutely. So you said last time that's what makes this solution and the software so powerful. Is this point cloud
exactly.
data.
So I just wanted to hit back on that as a starting point. So I'm going to turn the point cloud data back on. And I think we're at the same settings that we had in the last view. So I just kind of wanted to talk through really quickly about the different view settings that you can leverage inside IVION with point cloud data. So I currently have this set to, from a quality perspective, I currently have it on high quality. So you see, if I click on this here, I have a couple different options. First and foremost, I think it's really important for everyone to understand that these display options that you see here on my screen are only affecting what's displayed. So the data that we capture in the background with VLX and the way that it's processed is not changed by changing the different quality settings here. It's just a way that you can tune what you're seeing. In this case, when we're talking about quality settings, tune what you're seeing based on what you need and the performance maybe of your machine and or your internet connection. Does that make sense?
Gotcha. It's like changing the channel.
Yeah, right. So the data's there. The data is not changing, but what you're viewing is changing. So again, I have high quality selected here. I typically, if I'm just doing some quick evaluations of a site or a specific area, I'll typically stick with the balanced view. That's good enough for me, because even though I made the joke earlier about the panoramic photos making it easy for us humans to understand, even in the balanced setting, you can still get a pretty good idea of what it is that you're looking at. So it's just a way to take a look at things. And of course we have high performance, which would then also change the resolution of the display down a little bit more even there, and if these settings aren't, if you can fine tune these even more, right? So I'm going to put it back on balanced. I'll expand this. I'm not going to go over every single one of these parameters with you today. We have tons of information, on our support channel in terms of what these different parameters are and how you can adjust them. But for example, you can adjust the range, which is, how far away from the perspective point cloud data is displayed, for example.
Okay.
So I'm going to take this back down to balance, which I didn't change, so we're good there. The other thing that you can change, and again, I'm not going to go into the gory details here, is you can change the way that the point cloud data looks on your screen. So I don't typically in the manufacturing settings, I don't play around with this very much, but you can change things to an elevation setting, so you can change the gradient of the color depending on the elevation of the site, and then you can also take a transparent color, which makes the point cloud data a little bit more transparent, so that you can see through things. And again, this also has lots of other parameters here that you can fine tune to display the data, that in a way that makes sense for you and your use cases.
Absolutely. So tons of possibilities to view and work with both point cloud and panoramic data.
Yeah.
In here.
Exactly. So, and again, I think, as we get a little bit more mature, or not more mature, but as we work through the different episodes of our podcast here, you'll probably invite the real experts in the AEC industry that can kind of talk through some of the use cases on some of these different view settings. But I'm going to turn to the point cloud data back off, just because from a manufacturing setting, and again, because the point cloud data is always behind the panoramic photos, I typically will always navigate using the panoramic photos.
Gotcha. That makes sense. And just as a reminder to anyone watching, you can test this out for yourself. We'll leave a link in the description below with a test instance to NavVis IVION, where you can switch between these views and see what Nate has been showing you and talking about here. But actually, Nate, I was wondering if we could take a look at this small box in the right corner of your screen. I noticed it before, and maybe you can tell us a bit about what that is and how to work with it.
Yeah. So, and I use this quite a bit. So I'm in the, I can navigate this facility, like I'm doing now in this first person mode. And I think we talked about this a little bit in the last episode. Again, clicking on these location markers will navigate you through a facility, for example. In larger areas, larger data sets, I really like to navigate using this top-down view. So if you didn't just see what I just did there, these two screens are interchangeable. So you can toggle between the two. And the way that you do that is by clicking these two expanding arrows here. So that'll just toggle the main display from one or the other. So if you're navigating these large facilities, or you're trying to get maybe some more macro information about a facility, you can maximize the top-down view. And traverse larger distances in your factory, for example. But for me, I really like using this too as kind of like a layout view of a facility, and you can really get a lot of cool, useful context by looking at this. One thing that you'll notice as I'm talking and I'm moving my cursor around, you're seeing these location markers pop up, and again, these are where we've stopped and taken a 360-degree high definition panoramic photo. If that gets in your way, you can go back to this view button over here, and you can turn the location markers off so that that doesn't bother you as you're doing certain evaluations.
Well, if you want to get a clear shot of something, you can have a clear bird's eye view of a robot cell per se.
Yeah, exactly. So, you can imagine if you're a layout planner, and you're trying to get context of this specific area, it's pretty clear what it is that you're looking at, right? I've worked with a lot of different variations of 2D layout softwares in my career, down to the PowerPoint, draw tool sketching, which doesn't give you much context at all. But here you can see, you can very easily make out what it is that you're looking at. And I can zoom in even further, but just kind of getting this one area of the plant in focus, you can clearly see the logistics aisles. You can clearly see the pedestrian aisles. You can see the robots on their pedestals, the cable trays inside of the robot cell. So there's a lot of really useful information that can be derived out of just this, having this one view. So it's pretty cool.
Absolutely. So we've kind of touched on 2D versus 3D, panos versus point cloud. And then Nate, you and I were discussing this a bit before, but there's also one other view that you can use in this 2D kind of floor plan view. Would you maybe tell us a bit about those? Yeah.
So this really, the next little bit will kind of start to set the stage for what we internally call our rescan workflow. But I don't want to jump the gun here. This ground floor of this facility is quite complex. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to navigate to the second floor. So what we would call in the United States of America the second floor, what the Europeans call the first floor. So we're currently on the ground floor, which is floor 0 in this specific site. So if I want to go up to the mezzanine level of, for example, the way that I have this site set up, I would click the number 1, and what that will do is it will take me to the next level. So if you have a building that's 47 floors, you can denote that here off to the side and traverse floor to floor. So again, we're in the same area of the facility. We're just one level higher, and what I'm going to talk about now are the different layers that you can leverage to view your data. So if you look over here off to the right, and I hover over this icon, you'll see layers, and you'll see 4 different layers. The first layer is the standard view. So it's the one you and I have been operating in and virtually walking through this factory now for the last couple of episodes. That's the standard view. The next view is what we call a data set view. So let me toggle that on. And so what you see here is you see how the site has been set up from a data set perspective. So when we do reality capture, or when our customers do reality capture, we always recommend data set sizes of around 30 minutes to an hour's worth of scanning. And the reason we do that based on time is because the size will be somewhat steered based on how complex the area is. And the reason that we try to steer our customers into doing that, especially on the manufacturing side, is we want to section the facility out in such a way that if somebody changes a small area in a corner of a facility, you don't have to go out and collect an enormous, you don't have to do a large recapture process to get that data.
Don't need to shut down anything, move people. You can just go get that specific spot and bring it in.
And especially in a manufacturing setting, minimizing downtime, whether that's unplanned downtime due to an equipment failure or a mistake, or planned downtime, whether you're installing a new equipment or, in our case, recapturing data. You really want to minimize that window. So having these data sets set up in chunks of 30 minutes just gives our customers a little bit more flexibility in terms of how they keep their data up to date. Because what we want is we want the data to be as up to date as the customer needs it, so that they can continue to trust it. Right.
Absolutely.
So in this case, for example, if I were changing an area, or if I were changing something in the plant, or someone else has changed something in the area of the plant in the small corner, it's very quickly in this view to see, okay, I need to go rescan this yellow data set. In this case, the data set name is quite long because of the nomenclature that this customer uses. But it's quick. It's a very quick tool for me to go in and get the information that I need to start planning that rescan process.
Gotcha. Okay.
The next view, I'm not going to be able to show you very much here because this is a very simple site, the way that this site model has been set up. But what this view is it shows you what how you've set up your site model. So if you wanted to section off certain areas of your factory floor to represent, the cost centers in your working areas, or if you wanted to start labeling specific pieces of equipment or conference rooms, all of that's possible in the way that you set your site model up. And this is a quick way to view that here. This specific building was set up as one site entity, so that's what you're seeing. So again, something that maybe we can touch on with our colleagues in the AEC side of, so the architecture, engineering, and construction side of our business. Maybe we can find some data that would better suit showing that later on. And then the last layer that you have here is a trajectory map, and I really like this one. So let me zoom in on this data set that we were just talking about.
Okay.
So you see the little yellow line?
Mm-hmm.
Let me zoom in a little bit more. So that yellow line is the trajectory that the person took when they captured this data set. So not only do I know that I need to go, so going back to the example that I was just mentioning earlier, if I've changed something in this area, I know I need to rescan that one little yellow data set. And now I'm also able to kind of hone in on that data set now and see, okay, this is the path that person who captured the data took, so I can get an idea of how they did their loop closures, which is something that we can talk about later. And then what I can also see is where the control points are. So if I hover over this little guy, you see the information that's tied to the specific control point. And what these control points are they're place their markers in the facility, permanent markers in the facility that we survey a northing, easting, and vertical coordinate to based on the site model and how our customers have their site set up, so that, again, to support the rescanning process, when I rescan this data set, this is the mechanism that's used to be able to remove the old data and automatically align the new data in that position.
Okay, so it kind of like ties everything back together whether it's when it's the first scan to the next scan, it keeps everything aligned.
Exactly. It really streamlines that recapture and that reprocessing workflow. Again, going back to what I said earlier, we want people using the data. In order for people to use the data and to get the return on their investment, they need to trust it, right? So being able to keep their data up to date is very important. So if I click, I have the location markers turned off, so let me turn those back on. So theoretically, if I know what I'm talking about, which is questionable at times, if I click on this location marker here and I look at this column, I will see BF70 here, which corresponds to this specific control point. And you're able to see the surveyed value, but it's not important for you to know that because all of that's saved, as part of your site. But again, that's what allows you to remove old data and then plug in the new data without having to do a lot of tedious realignment.
Gotcha. Okay, I see. So I think in summary, there's a lot of different ways that you can work with these different views, different layers. You can really get very granular, but also stay very high level in your instance and with all this reality capture data.
Exactly. That's right. Yep.
Awesome. Well, I think that's all the time we have today. So I want to thank you again, Nate, for joining us. You definitely have proved yourself as an industry expert, but we'll have you back on a few more times just to be sure, if that's okay with you.
Sounds like a plan to me.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for tuning into the second episode of To The Point with NavVis. Make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel so you get notified every time we post. And if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them below. And we'll see you on the next episode. Bye.